Bob with Million Mile Garage. We're giving the Duster 360 an oil change today. No, this isn't a Walmart commercial, but I do tend to use a lot of their SuperTech products. Years ago, I switched to heavy duty engine oil, or HDEO, dual rated oil. Some people call it diesel oil, because of the amount of zinc reduction that was taking place in a lot of the popular motor oils at the time, which had a tendency to wipe out the camshaft lobes on flat tapping engines like my pair of 70s Camaros, my Duster 360. And also, I still run the oil in my 8950 Mustang, even though it's got roller lifters. It's typically it's a higher quality oil, and if you get the SuperTech on sale, it's very reasonably priced. Bob is the oil guy, and I'm not that guy. They have a website that tests all these oils, and they've had nothing but good to say about SuperTech for a long time. I know they just recently switched to a CK4 SN rating from the CJ rating, and I know under the CJ rating it was about 1,300 parts per million of zinc. I know in some of the newer formulations they may have a tendency to maybe decrease the zinc and maybe substitute some molybdenum or something. But as far as I know, it's still a high quality oil, and if you've got some mild street engines like I've got with cams that are well broken in, these engines should last for years to come running this stuff. I'm using a Fram filter because that's what Walmart has. I prefer Purolator. That's what I've used most of my life. But Walmart doesn't carry them anymore. And if you want them, you have to go to Advance Auto. And when they're not on sale, they cost more. Okay. First thing you do, take the plug out. The most basic of engine maintenance. Now, ordinarily I would wear rubber gloves, but since I don't have any, I'm just going to get a little oil on my fingers. See how fast I can pull this out. Not fast enough. Ooh, nice and hot too. That feels good. Oh yeah. Good one. Ah! Come here, oil plug. Ah, there we go. I'm sure that'll just wipe right off. I think we should have let the Marx Brothers change the oil instead. So, 360 cubic inch V8 chrome oil pan. I put this in the car about 25 years ago. It has about 25,000 miles on it, so I've averaged about 1,000 miles a year. And I don't think I've changed the oil on this since we shipped it up from Florida here to Alabama 2 years ago. So we'll just let that drain. While we're waiting for the oil to drain, I'm going to go ahead and fill up this grease gun with my favorite grease. Alright, I'm going to release the lever. See here, it's pretty well empty. Safe to do it now. And then what I'm going to do, because I'm a cheapskate, and I'm going to use Wally World Moly Lithium chassis grease. I always like to use chassis grease with moly in it because it's got a high pressure lubricant. And I think the ball joints and the tie rod ends last longer with this. And it's cheaper than buying the cartridges. So I just leave the paper cartridge in the mini grease gun, and I'm just going to come in right in this and just come in the top, and I'm going to push down as I suction, and I can usually do this without getting air pockets in it. So I'm going to come down slow and easy and push it down. I'm sure there's better ways to do it. There we go, it caught. And then this comes out, and then I just scrape the excess off. There, and that'll be full without any air pockets. So all I have to do is just wipe this off, reattach the top, and then I'll show you how I bleed the air pocket out. There'll be a little bit of air get trapped in here, which is not a big deal. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll cheat a little bit, and I'll just crack this open a little bit, and I'll go ahead and I'll relieve the pressure on this. and you can actually see it and hear it ooze out the threads a little bit. And that's usually a pretty good sign that you got the air out. There's one other thing I can do here. Oh, my hose is coming loose on me a little bit. Okay, that's screwed on nice and tight. And there's just a little fitting here that you bleed the air out with. Just grab a screwdriver real quick. I'm just going to loosen up this bleeder fitting right here and just let a little bit of air come out. There it goes. Alright, so we know we don't have any air in there now. Alright. I feel good about that. And then the final check. Let's see if it's going to pump grease. There we go, it's working. Good deal. I'm going to run a little more through just to make sure so it doesn't get air pockets or anything in the hose. So there we go. That's all there is to it, if you're a cheapskate like me. Alright, I just come in. I'm just going to grease up all my chassis fittings, starting with the lower ball joint. I'm just going to put my freshly loaded grease gun on here, and I'm just going to do a couple of pumps until I see this seal start to push out a little bit, that balloon seal. You don't want to over pressurize it, but you do want to know that you put enough in there that it's doing something. And it's been 2 years since I've lubed this chassis. Okay, I can see it coming out of this weep hole right here, so I know I got some grease in it, and that's good. Coming in here, this is my Moog Problem Solver idler arm, so I take really good care of this one. So I just want to come in and I want to give this one a few pumps. I'm going to try to just keep my hand out of the way so it doesn't. You should be able to see when it comes out somewhere. It's taking the grease. Oh, I hear it. Squish, squish. There it goes. I can see it move. I can see that foam seal move. Yep, I got some coming out here now too. But it definitely came out here. So I know I got that pressurized. I can hit it one more time just to be sure. I'm always nice to this one. Oop. Not coming in at the right angle. There we go. Look, nice and hard to push. That means it's pressurized. When these are in good shape, they usually take the grease really slow. You can see where I didn't quite get it seated good enough right there. But it definitely took the grease in. And then I got the fitting here. This is the part that goes inside the K-member. I always like to keep plenty of grease in that too. It should take the grease in pretty good. Yep. I can hear it coming out, but I can't see it. Yeah, there's plenty of grease coming out of that. So now I got grease in that. Grease in the upper ball joint. It's going to go until we see a little grease ooze out. Say when.
Go.
All right, we're just going to put a little grease in this tie rod. A few pumps should do it. Oh, you see it balloon out? See it moving? That's good enough. You just want to see it move a little bit. You don't need to fully pressurize it. That way I know that I've pushed enough grease into this joint so that that ball and socket is properly lubricated with good Molly infused chassis lubricant. All right. Okay, we're just going to give a couple of shots into this upper ball joint. I was hoping I could see a little grease ooze out or see this balloon move, but this upper ball joint has been here a long time.
Go.
You hit this lower ball joint over here. Taking the grease. Oh, there we go. See a little bit oozing out right there. It's pressurized. It's just spitting out the side there. Looks like it's got a little weep hole. But I never overpressurized the balloon, so that's okay. If it seeps, it's lubricated. And then I'll just go around and I'll hit my tie rods Just pointing up in here. I don't know how well you can see that. There's a tie rod, an idler arm here, or not an idler. This is the pitman arm for the power steering box. Of course, it's got a grease joint where it ties into the center link here, or drag link. And then you see here where it's like real tight. See where this grease fitting barely clears the torsion bar. I typically, what I have to do when the vehicle's off the ramps is I have to position the steering linkage to where I can get, I can probably get to this one right here if I come in at a weird angle. Sometimes I have to come in through the top. This one right here, I think I actually steer it, and then I'm going to come in over here somewhere from the top, from the engine bay, and come down and grease it. So yeah, these upper tie rod grease fittings are usually a little difficult. I have to play around with them to get to them. Not a huge deal. I'm just going to grease this one right.
It's been filming.
All right, couple of pumps, and we're going to see some grease ooze out of this fitting. This is my pitman arm fitting, and you can see the grease coming out there. Well, I know I got plenty of grease in that. You always want to have the pitman arm and the idler arm joints with plenty of grease in them, because those are the ones that see a lot of wear. You can see that joint swelling up a little bit, so I think I got plenty of grease in there. Yeah, I got a shot in there. A little bit came out, I think. There we go. All right, just a little bit of lubrication religion. When I'm done with the grease gun, I always take the pressure off of the spring like that, and it might draw a little bit of air in there when you do that, but of course once you repressurize it, you just open up your air bleed and let the air back out. The reason I do that is, and it also depends on where you store the grease gun. If you store it like in your garage where it gets really warm in the summer, when you leave this grease pressurized with the piston with the spring on it, it has a tendency to push the oil out of the carrier, because all greases are basically made up of a carrier, and then the lubricant's actually the oil. So a lot of times you'll notice if you have a grease gun that's been hanging up on the wall or sitting in your toolbox, you always notice there's like a lot of oily stuff that oozes out of it. That's not a good thing. If you're losing oil out of the carrier, that means that when you go to pressurize your force feed your fittings with the grease, you're basically just putting in carrier, which in a lot of cases it might just be like I think it's lithium. I think is one of the metallic soaps they use. I think that's the most common one. I think that's what this is made from, and then it actually has the oil in it. So if you've lost a lot of oil out of the carrier, then you're not really putting true grease in there. So it's maybe not quite as bad as running the fitting dry, but it's pretty bad, because the whole point of putting the grease in there is to lubricate the fitting. So I always take the pressure off of that so that I don't pressurize the grease, and it has a tendency to press the oil out of the carrier. That's the only reason I do that. One of the things I always like to do is examine the little nylon washer that's on the drain plug. So if you pan in real close here, you can see this one's been on the vehicle a long time, and this was one of those aftermarket chrome oil pans. I ended up buying that when I built the engine way back when, because the oil pan that I had was damaged at the wrecking yard. They had dented the oil pan in, and the aftermarket one had some kind of sloppy spot welds with a little nut is welded inside the oil pan that the drain plug threads into. And these nylon washers over time have a tendency to kind of sink into where those dents are on the oil pan. And what I always worry about is if I go to put this on, if these don't line up in those little dents, you're going to have a leak. So what I do is I always keep a spare box of little nylon washers that fit this drain plug, and I'm just going to go in and remove this one. This one actually had been used several times, but I guess the nylon sometimes when it gets old with age, it gets a little hard, and then it takes a set like that. And I probably could have just cut this off, but I'm just going to just pop it off, and then I'm just going to put on a fresh washer so that I don't have those problems. Yeah, there's the old one. You see how it was distorted, and then it also has like little dents in it, and that's probably not going to seal up right, which is like really frustrating after you dump in some new oil. You see how much this one had distorted over time. It actually has a ledge worn into it, and that's normal. OEM washers were a little thicker and better than that, and the nylon ones, I think I have one on my 78 Camaro. It's still the OEM one. It still doesn't leak, but a little box of these washers is cheap. It's good insurance. So That's my 2 cents on that. All right, just replacing the drain plug. Not much to see here. Can't really see the backside. And I'm just going to come in, and these new nylon washers are always a little spongy, so you always want to be really careful when you're going into threads that are lubed up, that are real easy to turn, and then the nylon makes it real easy to turn, so you don't want to overdo it with this because you can strip the threads out. So I just put it on really firm, and I should have got a good seal around that. We'll just go in real quick and take a look at that and see how that looks. Yeah, the lighting's not the best, but that looks pretty good. Looks like I got a good squish. Yeah, that's not going to leak. Just coming in from the top. Holy shit. I'm going to loosen up this oil filter with a strap wrench. There's my trusty strap wrench. And then I'm going to come down and loosen this filter. And it's over headers, so it's kind of hard to get to it from the bottom. You can get it from the bottom, but a lot of people would put some aluminum foil over the headers so the oil's not leaking down on top of them. It's kind of hard to see what I'm doing in here, but you can see that there's an exhaust header. It's got full-length headers on it, so I'm going to do the wrong thing and just let it drip all over them. And there's the oil just running out of the filter and running over the exhaust header. I gotta say though, these headers on this car are way better than those stock A-body manifolds with that restrictive exhaust, but they are a huge pain in the ass to work around. These were Performance Automotive Wholesale. All you old timers out there might remember that name. PAW for short. They were based out of, I think, Huntington Beach, California. And I did a lot of mail order parts from them back in the day when I was building this stuff. I bought a 350 small block Chevy that was a seasoned block, seasoned heads. Everything was bored, balanced, ready to go. All you had to do was assemble it. And when I did the Duster, I ordered similar parts. And I got these PAW header specials. They were $99. This was like 1995. And really, they should have just said, instead of saying fits a 73 Duster, should have said can be made to fit. Because I had to go around and dimple them and bend them and ding them to get them to fit. But they did fit. But simple things like having to replace a starter, I have to disconnect the steering linkage to get the starter out or remove the header. I just take the lesser of the two evils. Huge pain in the neck to deal with. But the car runs great with them, and it sounds great too. All right, the filter we're going to use is a Fram PH16, and it's the same size as the Purolator that we just took out. The long one, which I think is a PH8A, it doesn't clear my my headers, so I have to go with the short one. And before I install it, I'm just going to put a little bit of clean motor oil on the seal. All it takes is just a little dab, and then it doesn't hurt to add a little motor oil to the filter before I put it on. We'll just pour just a little bit in there just to prime it. There we go. Yeah, just a little more. It's not going to hurt. Okay. We just want to just get a little bit in there. Kind of making a mess here. All right. The only reason I add a little bit of motor oil into the filter, I try to prime it so that when you start the engine up, you can pressurize the bearings as soon as you can, so you're not running anything semi-dry. I had an old 79 Malibu wagon with about 250,000 miles on it, and unless you prime the oil filter on it, it would knock a little bit when you first started it after an oil change. That was a little thing I started doing years ago, so I always do it when I can. Of course, this filter doesn't go in exactly upside down like that. It goes in at a bit of an angle, so I just try to just put a little bit of oil in there. It helps. So, time to install it. And we're just going to come in through the bottom, reinstall, coming back in from the top, I mean. And then we're going to reinstall, and I'm going to grab it with my finger so that it can't fall out while I'm doing that. We're just going to come right down here. Just have to find the stud that goes on and screw it in. There we go. Spin it on. Got that nice Fram no slip grip. I know I'll probably get some hate mail for using the Fram because of the fiber end washers that they use. But I got to tell you, I've used both of them, and I've never had a problem with Purolator or Fram. I've used Wix and a couple other brands I can't even remember, and I've never had an engine-related failure or problem because of a faulty oil filter. So I've taken the Frams and cut them apart before, and I've never found anything in them that didn't look right. So, and again, the filter material is made out of fiber too. So I know the Purolators and a lot of the other ones, they have the metal end caps, which maybe it means something, I don't know, but that's one we're going to use today because that's what Walmart carries now. You have to go to Advance Auto to get the Purolators, and unless you get them on sale, they always cost more there. So there we go. I got that screwed in with a no slip grip. I know that thing's torqued on. So time to fill it up with oil and we're good to go. And I'm using SuperTech heavy duty 15W40. Some people call it diesel oil or HDEO, heavy duty engine oil. And it does have extra ZDDP in it, which is the anti-oil additive you want when you have a flat tappet engine. And I've had good luck with the SuperTech motor oils. I'm not saying they're better than anybody else's, but with regular maintenance, I don't think this oil is going to hurt your engine. And it's definitely going to have more ZDDP in it than some of the other oils that are in the, especially the ones that are not sold as diesel oil. You know, you've got other diesel oil people out there. You've got Rotella, the Chevron. There's a couple other ones I've used. I think Castrol has a diesel, heavy-duty diesel oil. There's several of them that have it. I usually just buy whatever's on sale. And I get a real deal on it. I usually buy it 2 gallons at a time, sometimes when it's on sale at Wally World. And then I just save the smaller bottles and just refill them. That way you can measure it out. I just dumped in 4 quarts just then, and I'm going to go in and I'm just going to add another quart to it. Then I know I got my 5 quarts in there, and then I'm good to go. Cut. All right, replace the oil cap. Mission accomplished. So that is the single most important thing you can do for engine maintenance to keep the engine alive and healthy, is always keeping the oil changed every 3,000 to 5,000 miles. Use the quality engine oil, and also checking the oil, make sure that there's plenty of oil in it, especially if it's an older car like this, because they do use oil. So I built this engine 25 years ago or thereabouts, and I guess it's getting to the point now I can't put the dipstick back in. It's a bad sign. But 25 years, and it's still going strong. Just lots of oil changes. Thanks for watching, and hit like and subscribe. Right there. You got it? Greasing the upper ball joint. It's going to go until we see a little grease oozes out. You bastard. Yeah, I really hate working without gloves right now, but you know, for that word that we can't say right now, that's why I don't have any gloves to work on, on the grease gun. So all I gotta say is wiping my hands off with this Molly grease and wiping this grease gun off, it reminds me what happens when you go out on a night of drinking and you come back and the next morning all you do is wipe and wipe and wipe and it seems like nothing ever gets clean. Cut.